So this Jeff Wittek and David Dobrik drama continues on. For those who are not familiar who Jeff Wittek, David Dobrik are, or the drama involving them, Jeff Wittek was a part of David Dobrik's vlog squad. Obviously, David would produce these 4-minute and 20-second vlogs. They would come out weekly. They used to come out multiple times a week. And then Jeff Wittek got into a terrible accident while filming one of these vlogs. He was on an excavator, I think that's how you pronounce it, that David was driving, and it ended really poorly. The video is online. It's actually terrible to watch, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, Jeff put it in his vlog or his documentary. So if you want to watch that, you could see what happened to his face and all that. And he got severely fucked up. He almost went blind in his eye. His whole head was cut open. It was a whole thing. And he got severely injured. And then he didn't talk about it for a while. And David stopped his vlogs for a while. And then Jeff made a whole documentary about what happened, all the surgeries he's had to go through. And then recently, Jeff had to get another surgery for his eye. And he said that David Dobrik did not reach out to him. And this is where the drama picked back up. I think that they tried to make amends after the incident happened. You see David in Jeff's documentary, and, David's trying to make it up to Jeff, and Jeff's trying to forgive him. And then I think things went south. I don't know exactly where, but like Jeff said in his podcast, he's like, David never reached out to me. I got after this current surgery that I got. And he felt like he should be reaching out all the time and every time he gets surgery, because this accident, he's saying, is because of his vlog. And then David hadn't spoke on it publicly until this past week. He talked about it on his podcast because Jeff was talking about it on his podcast. And also there was a roast of Bryce Hall that happened before the Super Bowl. I know that it might've been a week before the Super Bowl. And they cut out Jeff's set. And there's a lot of rumors going around about why Jeff's set was cut. Jeff said on his Instagram story that it was because of David and because he was making jokes about David.
That roast was run by Jason Nash, who's David's best friend.
Yes, and also sponsored by SeatGeek, which was obviously a big sponsor of David Dobrik. So Jeff said that, his set got cut because of him. Other people are saying that it was cut because of certain jokes Jeff was making, and other people's jokes got cut, like Josh Richards' jokes got cut. Some other people's jokes got cut because of the tone of the jokes. So it's kind of unclear on whether or not David really did have a say on whether or not Jeff's jokes got cut or whatever it is, but this is what Jeff seems to believe. And then David went on his podcast this past week to talk about what happened. And he said that it's time for him to talk about it. He hasn't talked about it publicly. And obviously he was very apologetic, and he said it's the worst thing that's ever happened to him. He would do anything to take it back. He wished it was him up there. He was the one driving. And David also said that Jeff wanted to keep it between David and him, that it was Jeff's idea to get up there, I guess, because then that makes it look like it was Jeff's fault. Either way, I think that the situation is terrible, and I think that sometimes David Dobrik has a hard time taking blame for things that have happened in his vlogs. I think we've seen that in the past because he's obviously made so many videos and so many things have happened, and because of his status and the amount of views that he gets on YouTube, people will do anything for his vlogs. And I think that's kind of where his head was at when he got up there. It was anything for the vlog, and then he got severely injured and regretted that decision. So it's kind of just a constant back and forth between the two. And I don't know, I'm not really, I feel very bad for Jeff, obviously. It's a weird, it's a weird thing to take sides on this kind of issue, right? Because it's obviously you feel terrible for Jeff. His whole face and his eyes, everything got fucked up. And then you're like, well, if he got up there, right, and he told David it was okay for him to drive, and now David has to live with that. It sucks that David did that. I think David is, of course, at fault in some capacity, but
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that how much it has been discussed of the pressures that David has intentionally or unintentionally put on his friends to do stuff for videos is really like a major part of that too. I don't really know if any of them have ever felt like, oh, like I'm going to tell David no to do this. And also it is just kind of a dick move to have this happen to Jeff. Major accident. One, like maybe David should be paying for literally all of these surgeries.
He basically was like
if he has to go back and do more, has to get more surgeries, like
David was basically, him and Natalie, like on the podcast, were saying like they've paid $78,000, but then Jeff responded to that being like, you set us up with like a terrible insurance company, and like David's trying to say that Jeff doesn't tell him or loop him into the surgery, so he can't pay, but they were also, Jeff was like, 78 grand is like a SeatGeek deal for you, like you have like millions of dollars. Like,
right. And I this one also, I do think that it is kind of a dick move to have this happens, right? And clearly, like, you see what has happened to Jeff, and you're so selfish in that you have to try and make yourself look better, that you have the guy who got injured ask you, like, can you promise me one thing? Just like promise me you're never going to talk about how this was this is also what David said. David says that he agreed that he would never talk about how Jeff had said that this was, quote, his idea. Like the whole, the video, whatever, him going up there, the video, his idea. And so David had said, like, one of the main reasons I think Jeff is bummed with him right now is because he saw David do an interview where he said it. Like, he said, like, it was Jeff's idea. And I just feel like that's kind of a dick move to be like, oh, yeah, he's mad at me because I broke a promise where I said I wasn't going to say that it was his idea, but here I am saying that it was his idea, just so that he can save face.
Yeah, I think that in David Dobrik's life, like, everything just revolves around David. Like, I've had a hard time, honestly, like, I don't look at his videos the same way that I did before all of this and before everything else that happened with the Vlog Squad. Like, it's hard to watch it the same way because you're just like, you feel bad for a lot of them. And also when you think about the fact that it was like Corinna was up there right before Jeff, and that could have been Corinna who got severely, I mean, no matter who it is, but you're just like,
right, could have been anyone.
It could have been anyone, but like none of that should have happened in the first place. And I think that he just is all about like views and laughs and whatever, and like never thought about his consequences, and is still not really thinking about the consequences of what he did. And also for him, like
a warped brain at this point. Yeah, when you're like, when your whole career is based around this, especially in like your early 20s, I just feel like he hasn't, like, the way he's developed is not like a normal human.
And also when he's like, it's the worst thing that ever happened to me. It's like, it's probably the worst thing that ever happened to Jeff.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of, he's putting it on him, making people feel bad for him. When you should feel bad for Jeff. Jeff's the one that got severely hurt.
He started the whole podcast kind of being like, I've been in a bad, like, trying to make people feel bad for him. Like, I've been in a dark place. Like, and I'm sure he has, but it's like, you weren't the one who almost died. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I feel really bad for Jeff because I used to watch like a lot of Jeff's videos, and just apart from the Vlog Squad too, and you can kind of tell his whole demeanor and his whole personality has changed since the incident. And you just kind of, you feel bad for him because he's clearly going through so much and having to go through all these surgeries, and obviously probably dealing with now some, things that go on top of that, like anxiety, depression, all these mental health issues on top of also physically not feeling well.
Right.
So I do feel really bad for Jeff. And I don't know. I think that with David, it's just like, people are still going to watch him. People are, people who have been fans of him for so long are always going to give him those views. And I think he'll end up kind of just, I don't know. I want to say fading away, but I really don't know. But because he kind of has a little bit, but people still watch, but he's not as talked about. And his videos are never going to be the same. It's never going to be what it was.
No, eventually you have to move on from that as well. Just like I just think even if there wasn't, like, even if this didn't happen, or even if, you know, the allegations from the girls in the video, like things like that, like if those things didn't happen, eventually you have to graduate from the kinds of videos he was making. Like, that's just not sustainable forever, I don't think, anyway. But now with those things that are looming constantly, like, I don't know. From my perspective, like, I watched some of his stuff. I wasn't that into it. I would see some things here or there. Sometimes maybe if he had a good guest, I'd watch his podcast. After this, reading about him, and then, of course, like, the big scandal, I haven't watched a single one of his things, and I don't think I ever will. Like, I just don't care for him at all, so.
Yeah, I'm kind of out on it. Yeah. Like I said, it's just not the same at all, and I think that Jeff is genuinely like a nice guy, and I feel like he's just kind of lost now because he feels like his supposed one of his best friends is just not really there for him. Like, David, like, as much as David says like, oh, Jeff isn't like looping me in or whatever, like, David should be on top of it
for
too.
sure.
Like, he should be probably constantly checking in on Jeff,
right? And
not just like a one-off, here's $78,000 to pay for this one thing, and then like you're fine and we don't really have to interact anymore. Like, you should probably consistently check in on him when he literally almost died.
And like you said, it does feel like Jeff, his like demeanor, and he said it's a head injury. Like, it does seem like things have changed, and you can't just be like, oh, well, you know, he hasn't reached out. It's like, well, what? Like, you have to be the one to reach out and put in the effort and do those things when somebody goes through such a crazy accident like that.
And I think like you said, because he's so young and everything has kind of revolved around him for so long. And if you did watch the old Vlog Squad videos, and I'm like recalling how everything would go back to David being like super rich and successful. Like, even Josh Peck would be like, oh, my days are in the spotlight are over. Like, I'm relying on David Dobrik. And like Jason would be like, you're putting my kids through school. And like, everything was like, David Dobrik's the golden child, and like our whole lives revolve around him, and he's supplying us with like everything. And that's obviously, as much as they were joking or not joking, it's obviously going to get to somebody's head.
It'll warp your brain when all you're being told by all your friends is like, oh, like, I make my living off of David, and like, thank God for David. And David, he's so great. Oh, do you see, look at all the money he's giving away. Look at everything he's giving to his friends. Like, you get like a God complex, you know? Like, if you're that person, like, you start to think of yourself in a very different way.
And I think, like you said, he kind of just surrounds himself with yes men.
Yeah, totally.
And it got to the point where everyone said yes all the time, and then somebody ended up getting really hurt. Yep. So I think now that,
and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that wasn't my idea. It's like, oh, okay, the one time you're not gonna you'll take credit for all the good things that happen, but and it is he is saying like, I know I fucked up, it's on me, biggest regret of my life. He is saying those things, but to say those things and then to pair it with, oh, by the way, I broke his promise to keep it like that it was his idea. Like, you're not,
it also
you're contradicting yourself.
This is something that David Dobrik does, like when he got canceled the other time, where it's like he doesn't talk about anything until the pressure is like impossible to ignore, where everyone is like online talking about it. Then he just addresses it to save face. Like, he didn't talk about it like ever until like now.
Yeah.
That's what makes him seem like a coward, because you're like, if you have nothing to hide or whatever it is, just like get out in front of it and start talking about it. And I don't know, but those people, they really listen to their publicists and stuff. They're like, oh, we shouldn't say anything.
It sucks because like it's not just David. I feel like Jeff was friends with that whole group, and now like they all just chose David, and so like he probably just doesn't talk to anyone he hung out with for years.
Right. It's pretty sad, and I hope that Jeff ends up feeling better and finding his place, because I do feel like he seems like his whole demeanor has changed a bit.
Yeah, definitely.